For many people, having to care for an adult baby is a burden. But for a single mother cast out by society like me, my son is everything. Taking care of him and expressing my motherhood rights is the only thing that brings balance to my humble life. My life is a mess, lived under the oppression of others. More than once I've thought about ending my life. But when little Kevin appeared, nestled in my arms with his black eyes looking up at me so trustingly, I found meaning and a purpose for my life. I am a mother, and this child is entirely mine. Since Kevin came into my life, everything has brightened. I can do anything to give him the best life possible. But as Kevin grew older, the bond between us began to fade. He grew up healthy and capable, becoming my pride. Yet the feeling that he was slipping out of my control left me feeling unhappy. Sometimes I wished Kevin could go back to those days when he was still small. Then those fleeting thoughts suddenly became reality when Kevin fell severely ill, losing his ability to care for himself. I knew this was the time he needed me the most. It was as if I were reliving the days when Kevin was a small child. Every day I fed him, played with him, and helped him with his hygiene. Kevin struggled to digest food, so I gave him formula. After noticing how difficult it was to clean Kevin when he wore regular pants, I suddenly thought of dressing him in a bodysuit, just like when he was a baby. That outfit turned out to be incredibly practical, and it suited Kevin perfectly. Kevin would often hurt himself trying to roll off the bed. I suddenly thought that I should create a softer, warmer, and safer space for him, like a crib. Kevin, with his legs gradually withering away, obediently sat still in the crib. That gave me an unusual sense of satisfaction. Lately, Kevin had been very well behaved, so over the weekend, I decided to take him outside as a reward. But all that good behavior he'd shown me was just a scheme. The raspy sound of Kevin's voice calling out for help to the police sent me into a panic.
Why do you have such a large stroller?
Kevin was pleading for help from someone other than me. He was trying to escape from my love. Officer, it's just a misunderstanding, I explained calmly. You see, my son's mental state is a bit unstable, and his legs are also not convenient for moving. The officer glanced disdainfully at Kevin, a look that unsettled me, but I knew I had achieved my goal. No one would believe Kevin now, not even me, and Kevin would pay the price for his deceit. Once we got home, Kevin and I had a heated argument. It turned out that he had been quietly rebelling against me all along. Kevin pointed at his twisted leg, angrily accusing me of ruining his life.
Mom, you've destroyed everything for me!
I did everything for you because you tried to abandon me. My world consisted only of me and Kevin, so when Kevin said he wanted to move out to study in another state, I vehemently opposed it. Yet, Kevin remained determined to leave me. I would never accept any act of rebellion from my only son. I would do whatever it takes to keep Kevin by my side, even if it meant resorting to the most extreme measures.
I hate you! You're crazy!
My goal had been achieved. Kevin was staying with me, so I was willing to overlook some of his rebellious moments.
Stay away from me!
But things had gone too far. I felt that there was no longer any common ground between Kevin and me. So I decided to turn Kevin into a real child, one who only knew how to eat, sleep, and play with his mother, who would cry for food, not speak, and not resist. Kevin lay on the bed, his fearful gaze breaking my heart. But above all, he had to pay for the times he had shattered my mother's heart. Don't be scared, my love. Just bear the pain for a little while, I said softly. The only way for us to find harmony was for one of us to remain silent forever. From now on, Kevin would be a child, and I would care for him eternally. From that day on, my son and I could finally live in harmony. I could feel Kevin becoming more dependent on me. He started sleeping more, just like a real child. From now on, we could be together forever. I'm Sarah. I rented an old McDonald's. Luckily, the equipment was still in good condition, so I just had to do some minor cleaning, and I can open my store tomorrow. While cleaning, I heard a strange noise. I followed the sound and found a Ronald McDonald statue. I'm so lucky. Kids love Ronald. I'll put it in front of the store. I'm sure it will attract a lot of children. Opening day was a huge success. We were open until 11 p.m. Everyone was exhausted, so I decided to work the late shift. This town is mostly farms, so I figured it would be pretty quiet. I was just sitting there, scrolling through my phone, when I heard the order bell. I went to the counter, but there was no one there. Maybe I heard it wrong. Just as I was about to close the window, a blood-red message caught my eye. More childish pranks? This town isn't as peaceful as I thought. I had just sat down when the bell rang again, urgently. Someone was trying to mess with me already. I stood up angrily and was about to confront whoever was doing this when it appeared in front of me. Exactly. It appeared because I had shut all the doors of the sales booth. "Get out of here!" She looked scary, but she was just a little girl, right? "Are you hungry? Can I help you?"
"Aren't you scared of me?"
She seemed so miserable. She must have suffered a lot. I replied calmly, "You're not scary at all." Suddenly, the window shattered. Was it not her ringing the bell? I looked at the window and there was Ronald McDonald staring at me with an evil grin. What in the world is happening?
"Run!"
Sully's scream jolted me back to reality, and I instinctively followed her. We dashed into the storage room, and I couldn't resist asking her, "Hey, you seem to know a lot about that creepy clown statue." She didn't respond, but floated up, sending a crate crashing to the floor. There, before my eyes, was a crate of files, full of the store's dark secrets.
"The clown statue is haunted by Sean. He's the one who hurt me." He would put on a Ronald McDonald costume, and since my dad was always busy, I'd come to the store alone. Sean would always treat me. One day, Sean said he would take me home instead of my dad. I went with him, but we went farther and farther, and it got darker and darker. I tried to escape, but he held me tight. I was terrified. He hurt me so badly that my soul left my body. I knew right then that I was dead. My dad thought Sean had hurt me, but he couldn't find any proof. So my dad killed him right here in front of the store. So my dad went to jail, and that guy, Sean, possessed the clown statue and started haunting me.
I couldn't believe the reason this store was closed was so terrifying. Just then, the storage room door slammed shut with a bang. "Sully, don't worry, I'm here for you." The door was kicked open, and the creepy clown appeared with a sinister laugh. He wasn't a friendly clown anymore. Inside him was a monster.
"You sick bastard! I won't let you hurt anyone else."
Even though I smashed its head in, the clown statue didn't seem to care. Its smile was so taunting. The clown could even control broken bricks. I didn't see that coming. I could only cover my head.
"Are you okay?"
"I'm fine. This statue is going down. I'm going to crush this evil statue and make that pervert Sean disappear forever." I turned him into dust. Let's see if he can come back. Finally, the clown was completely defeated. Sully ran to hug me. Now she can finally rest. To give Sully's spirit peace, I called the police to the spot where her body was buried. As she wished, I also asked her father to come and claim her body. Finally, after 23 years, her body was found. Seeing the old man, her father, sorrowfully holding his daughter's body, my heart ached. This was the last comfort for him. He finally got to meet his daughter. I did a good thing, didn't I?
Thank you so much, Sarah.
Goodbye, Sully. Have a blessed Thanksgiving.
The smell was overwhelming. Rot mixed with something burnt and metallic. My breath caught as I stepped into the cramped kitchen. The stove held a large pot filled with meat and bones I didn't want to identify. In the fridge, peeking out from behind condiments and leftovers, was a man's head, eyes frozen wide in horror. On the counter, a pan of oil held floating meats, their skin blistered and blackened. I swallowed hard, disgust seeping through me. Who could do something so monstrous? The tip-off was strange too. A man named Jose had called, shaken, saying his friend Omaima had been in a terrible situation. She'd killed her husband Bill, he claimed, in self-defense. Yet here was the aftermath. Nothing about it screamed panic or self-defense. This was calculated. Inside the interrogation room, Omaima sat across from me, hands folded neatly, an unsettling calm in her gaze. I studied her for a moment, Egyptian, early 30s, dark hair framing a face that seemed almost serene, as if she were waiting for a dinner order instead of facing a murder charge. I started. Omaima, can you explain why we found your husband's body? Like that? She raised her eyes to mine, completely unbothered.
I didn't have a choice, Detective Dean. Bill was... he was hurting me every day. I did what I had to do.
To defend yourself? I lifted a crime scene photo, showing the state of the kitchen, the blood-stained counters. This doesn't look like self-defense. This looks like a lot more. Why cut him up? Why cook parts of him? Her eyes were filled with tears, as if about to cry.
Bill was abusive, controlling. He threatened me every day.
We found no evidence of abuse, no medical reports, nothing. His family, his friends, none of them ever saw this violent side of him you're describing.
Of course they didn't.
She said, voice rising a notch.
He was charming to everyone else, a real angel. But with me, he was a demon.
I pressed, leaning forward. Tell me what happened the night of his death. She trembled and started to say,
He came home drunk, started yelling, insulting me, and then he put his hands on me. I fought back, grabbed anything I could, scissors, a lamp, even an iron. He tried to hit me and I fought until he wasn't moving anymore.
And that's when you decided to dismember him?
I have nothing to say, but it was Thanksgiving.
She said, a glimmer of dark humor in her eyes.
I figured I should be thankful.
I felt a chill. Thankful? She leaned in, her smile widening, eerie.
If you lived in that nightmare, you'd understand.
I narrowed my gaze. The coroner's report shows he was restrained before he died. There were marks on his wrists, Omaima. So tell me, what kind of struggle leaves a man tied up and defenseless? She looked taken aback for a moment, but recovered.
He was violent, Detective. I had to protect myself.
From a man tied to a chair, I shot back, voice steady. Look, Omaima, this doesn't add up. The way his body was found. This wasn't an act of panic. This was controlled, deliberate.
What would you know about being terrified for your life? He threatened to report me, turn me into an illegal. I was traumatized by more than 10 years of abuse.
And yet, I continued, not letting up. There's no proof of any of this. No one else saw this side of him, no reports, no complaints. Even your ex-husband says you showed no signs of being traumatized by the abuse.
Of course they don't know.
She hissed, her control starting to crack.
Bill made sure to keep that side of him private. He manipulated people to admire him and look down on me.
You expect me to believe that, I replied, and yet there's no physical evidence on your body, no bruises, no injuries. In fact, Bill's body shows that he was tied down. The only one with marks here is him. So, who was it who really held the power? She smirked, tilting her head.
It wasn't about power, Detective. It was about survival.
The room went cold as I felt a shift in her tone. She started to laugh softly, a low, unsettling sound.
You want the truth, Detective?
She asked, leaning forward, eyes glinting.
The truth is, it was Thanksgiving. I wanted to thank him, so yes, I hit him. Hard. Then I got the scissors, the iron, anything I could find. I made sure he'd never touch me again. And yes, I carved and cooked, just like he'd done to me, piece by piece, breaking me down.
I swallowed, my own pulse pounding. Her voice had dropped to a soft, chilling whisper.
Detective, the world is better without him. Someone like him deserved what he got.
Is that what you think? That dismembering him, frying his hands, that's justice to you? We fell into silence, her gaze unwavering, mine struggling to match hers. And then, without warning, she smirked.
You know, I remember now. There were others there that night. 2 women, 3 men. They came in after, drugged me, staged the scene. I didn't kill him. They did.
Her laugh was almost musical, a mad sound filling the room. I frowned, feeling the hairs on the back of my neck rise.
Oh yes,
She whispered, her eyes far off.
they set me up. They wanted him dead too, I'm sure of it.
Her laughter spiraled higher and louder, filling the small room, as I watched, horrified. In that moment, her story fractured completely, falling apart in pieces even as she clung to them. Days later, Dr. Scheffner would diagnose her with a severe psychotic break, claiming that her actions had taken place in a trance-like state, as if she were outside herself. They said she couldn't be held accountable, not fully, not in the way a sane person would be. But even now, that laugh, that glint in her eyes, follows me like a shadow. I can't remember how many times I've had this dream, but the fear and helplessness still make my heart ache. That's right. I'm terrified, absolutely haunted by spiders. As a child, I lived on my dad's insect farm, surrounded by spiders. The fear nearly gave me a fatal heart attack, leading my parents to divorce. Now, I live with my mum. My graduation is soon, but Dad didn't reply to my invitation. His last email, 2 weeks ago, proudly announced his success with mutant spider research. I have a bad feeling something went wrong with my dad's research. I've decided to go to his farm and make sure he's safe. It's been almost 10 years since I last set foot in this house. The house was pitch dark, damp, and eerily silent, with only my voice echoing as I cautiously called out, "Dad!" There was just one place left to check. Taking a deep breath, I tried to suppress my fear and turn the doorknob. Suddenly, a swarm of black spiders scurried out from behind the door. My body froze, trembling as I collapsed to the floor. At that moment, someone stepped out of the basement. It was my dad, George, the biologist. silently blowing a strange flute that sent the spiders retreating into the basement. Dad helped me up, his frail hand pale with black veins and dark, sharp hairs like a spider's bristles. Something was definitely wrong with him.
Why are you here, Jax?
I handed him the invitation card. He took it without a word, his cold demeanor cutting deep. Then I noticed something stuck on his eye. Instinctively, I reached out to remove it. It was a strand of spider silk, not something accidentally caught in his eye, but something coming from inside it. Dad jerked back, clearly annoyed by my actions, and rubbed his eye. The strand of silk disappeared without a trace. Dad, my car broke down. Can I stay here for the night?
Fine. But stay in your room. Don't wander around.
Seeing Dad's odd behavior, I knew something was wrong, likely because of the spiders. I made an excuse to stay and find out. As a meticulous researcher, I figured Dad would have recorded his entire experiment. I was right. Taking a deep breath, I opened the first folder. Skipping the confusing reports, I clicked on the first video, and it terrified me. The clip showed a female spider carrying an enormous egg sac. The spider screamed in pain, like a woman about to give birth. But spiders lay eggs, don't they? My suspicions were quickly confirmed. I watched as a massive baby spider broke out of the egg, dragging its mother's insides with it. The hungry spider rushed to its first meal, while the mother lay weak, helpless, and still as her young devoured her. It was so cold-blooded, so cruel. It was more disgusting than any spider or monster I had ever imagined. It took me a moment to regain my composure. I opened the final video, but what I saw was even worse. I was sure this spider was no longer a normal creature. Thinking about how this mutated spider had been born, I feared for my dad. What would happen when those eggs hatched? Suddenly, my dad appeared in front of me, his face furious.
Jax! What are you doing here?
I forced down my fear and rushed to tear off his shirt, hoping what I had seen was just a scene from a sci-fi movie. But I was wrong. These spiders were more dangerous than I had imagined. Each egg was stuck to my dad's skin, with a tiny tentacle piercing his spine. They were living and growing off his spinal fluid. The fear in my chest grew stronger, and I felt dizzy, my hands and legs trembling uncontrollably. Looking up at my dad, I noticed his eyes were slowly turning into those of a spider. I heard him gasp and scream at me.
Ron, get out of here!
He still had his mind. He still cared for me. I had to save him, telling myself that. I grabbed a ruler from the desk and rushed toward him. I shoved him to the ground, using all my strength to crush the eggs on his back. One by one, they cracked open and the baby spiders fell, filling the air with the scent of blood and a foul odor. Suddenly, my dad erupted with strength. He shoved me off, screaming,
Don't hurt my children!
"You've lost it, Dad! I'm your son! I'll save you from these monsters!" I yelled, only to realize, in shock, that the man in front of me was no longer the dad I knew. He had fully transformed into a monster. He shielded the baby spiders like a true mother spider, glaring at me as though I were an enemy trying to harm his offspring. The look in his eyes caused me pain and despair. What could I do to save him? But it was too late. The monster, now enormous and with all the terrifying traits of a spider, stood before me. My body froze, even breathing felt difficult, and my heart began to ache again. My dad's agonizing scream jolted me back. I turned to see the newborn spiders, driven by instinct, making him their first meal. Survival instinct drove me to run. I tried to drag my dad with me, but it was already too late. Helen, that's enough. How long are you going to keep up this boring joke?
Knock, knock, knock.
Helen, the woman I'd loved and lived with for 3 years, looked like a stranger. Her face was empty, her eyes hollow, like a lifeless mask. What do you want? My voice cracked, a mix of anger and fear. Helen didn't answer. She just stared at me and spoke.
Knock, knock, knock.
Those 3 words, repeated in a cold, steady rhythm, sent chills down my spine. I couldn't take it anymore. Grabbing my pillow and blanket, I left the suffocating room. This was the 4th night in a row she'd woken me up at exactly 3:27 a.m. I texted an old friend from college, now a psychologist, explaining the strange things happening to Helen. His reply shocked me. Had something really happened to Helen? I decided to tell him everything, holding nothing back. Everything began 4 days ago. We were sleeping together as usual when Helen shook me awake. At exactly 3:27 a.m., she started this strange knock, knock, knock game. I thought she'd just woken up from a bad dream and wanted me to comfort her. So, half asleep, I played along. Who's there? Is it my beloved Helen?
It's not me, so don't open the door.
After her cryptic reply, Helen fell asleep as if nothing happened. The next morning she seemed normal, but at 3:27 a.m., she woke up and repeated it all. The response from my friend left me stunned. I tried to justify it, but his reply was firm, almost certain. I couldn't deny it anymore. In that moment, my trust in Helen began to waver. I shut my laptop and tried to get some rest, but those doubts had already taken root, digging deeper into my mind. In the end, curiosity and doubt won. Helen's sudden appearance unsettled me, but her blank expression only fueled my irritation. I actually set up a hidden camera in the house to spy on my girlfriend. Helen and I were in a cold war. She didn't bother to explain or apologize. That night I couldn't sleep. My nerves were on edge, my heartbeat slowing, steadying, sinking with each tick of the clock. I could almost predict the exact moment it would hit 3:27 a.m. And then, as if caught in an endless, suffocating loop, it all happened again. My patience with Helen had reached its limit. This time I decided to act. I was going to make her stop. I tied Helen to the bed, gagging her with a strip of cloth. I wanted to see if, without my response, without being able to continue her game, she could just shut up and sleep like a normal person. The house was eerily quiet, except for the steady ticking of the clock. I couldn't sleep, so I decided to review the footage from my hidden camera. What I saw made my blood run cold. The Helen in the recordings was unrecognizable. She looked like Helen, but her movements were robotic, stiff, lifeless, like a puppet with its strings being pulled. I had to admit it. Helen was no longer Helen. Or worse, she might not even be human anymore. Suddenly, 3 heavy knocks shattered the silence. Knock, knock, knock. Then a voice, unmistakably hers, called out from behind the door.
Eddie, it's me, Helen.
Her voice was so real. Too real. I checked the front door camera, needing to confirm if it was really her. And there she was. Helen, the real Helen, crying and begging for me to let her in.
Eddie, please, let me in. That thing in there. It's the imposter.
My whole body trembled. If she was outside, then what was lying in my bed? I turned around and froze. Helen, or rather the thing pretending to be her, was standing just a few steps away, staring at me with empty eyes. I forced myself to stay calm. My friend had sent me some tools to prepare for this. Among them was a high-frequency audio file, which I quickly played. It worked. I had identified my enemy as an alternate, so a powerful UV flashlight would be useful. The alternate was trying to stop me from opening the door, and it could no longer maintain Helen's form. It appeared before me with a grotesque, twisted body. As the light from the flashlight hit it, its body distorted. its features melting into a blurry mass. It was no longer Helen. It had turned into a flickering white shadow. I remembered what my friend had told me. Between 3 and 4 a.m., the boundary between worlds is thinnest. I had to bring the real Helen back before it was too late. The door swung open as if revealing another dimension. Blinding light and a cacophony of chaotic sounds rushed at me, overwhelming my senses and leaving me dizzy. I held my breath, anxiously staring at the door, waiting for what would come next. Finally, I let out a sigh of relief. My Helen was back.
Eddie!
Helen, I missed you so much.
I miss you too. I married him quickly. We met exactly 100 days ago. A whirlwind romance, passionate and intoxicating. Gabe swept me off my feet with candlelit dinners, spontaneous weekend getaways, and whispered promises under the moonlight. Then, one evening, he got down on one knee. I should have been hesitant. We barely knew each other. But when he slipped the ring onto my finger, I said yes without a second thought. Now, here we were, floating in the middle of the ocean on a luxurious private yacht, basking in the glow of our honeymoon. Just the two of us. Gabe poured another glass of wine, his fingers grazing mine as he handed it over.
To us.
I smiled and clinked my glass against his. We talked for hours, about dreams, childhood memories, random stories about life. His laughter was warm, his gaze full of love. Then, as the conversation lulled, he leaned in.
You know, we should talk about finances.
He said casually. I tilted my head. Why?
Well, we're married now. We should be open about everything, right?
That made sense. Couples should share everything. Bank accounts, properties, even insurance policies. Still, something about the way he asked made my stomach twist. He reached for my hand.
Do you have life insurance?
I hesitated, just for a second. Then, I answered, of course I did. I had a sizable policy from my job. A good one. Gabe pulled out his phone and looked up insurance details. His thumb traced slow, deliberate circles on my wrist.
That's a wise choice. I'd hate for anything to happen to you.
I laughed nervously, brushing it off. Love is trust, right? That night, I expected our first night together as husband and wife to be passionate. But after dinner, after another glass of wine, my eyelids grew unbearably heavy. I barely remembered climbing into bed. The gentle rocking of the yacht should have lulled me into a peaceful sleep. But instead, I felt like I was sinking. I could hear Gabe's voice in my ear.
Sleep tight, my love.
Then, nothing. I woke up groggy. My limbs were heavy, my head foggy, as if I had run a marathon in my sleep. Gabe was already up, preparing the diving gear.
Good morning, sleepyhead. Are you ready for our first dive together?
I hesitated. I had never gone diving before. The thought of being deep underwater, where the surface was just a distant shimmer, made me uneasy. But Gabe was so excited, and I wanted to be the wife he deserved. I guess, I said, forcing a smile. He beamed.
Don't worry, I'll be right behind you.
There was no diving instructor, no one else on board, just us. Don't we have a diving instructor?
I wanted this moment to be just ours.
That should have made me feel special. Instead, I felt a strange, creeping sense of unease. But love is trust, right? As I turned away to change into my wetsuit, I caught a glimpse of Gabe out of the corner of my eye. He was messing with the oxygen tank. I froze. What are you doing? He glanced up, his expression smooth, calm.
Your tank had a leak. I'm switching it out for another one.
I nodded slowly. It made sense, didn't it? Maybe I was just overthinking things. The moment we plunged into the water, all my fears melted away. The world below was breathtaking, Schools of fish swirled around us in shimmering clouds. Coral reefs stretched endlessly, swaying gently with the current. It was like an alien world, untouched, silent, beautiful. Gabe swam beside me, watching me with a smile behind his mask. For the first time since waking up, I felt safe. Then, without warning, he reached behind me and unfastened my oxygen tank. It took me a second to realize what had happened. One moment, I was breathing. The next, nothing. Panic surged through me. I clawed at my regulator, desperate to shove it back into my mouth. But my fingers fumbled. My lungs screamed for air. Gabe just hovered there, watching me. Waiting. He wasn't going to save me. He had been planning this. I lunged at him, grabbing his wetsuit, my nails digging into his arms, but he twisted away faster than me, stronger. I kicked, trying to chase him, but my body was slowing down. Oxygen deprivation. Black spots bloomed in my vision. My arms felt like lead. Gabe was swimming backward, watching me struggle. His eyes held no love, no regret, just cold detachment. Then, he turned and swam away, fading light. I reached out for him, my fingers grazing the water where he had been. I kicked, I thrashed, I tried to move toward the surface, but I was sinking. I should have waited longer. I should have taken my time, should have questioned the man who loved me too fast, too intensely. But love makes us blind. The sunlight above me grew fainter, more distant. Gabe was gone, and I was alone.